Hello. Today I'd like to explain how to use blocks and relationships in Engagio. First we'll cover why blocks, then what is a block, and finally examples of how to use blocks correctly. So if you recall, when I was first introducing Engagio selectors, I had a slide to talk about why you would bother to use Engagio selectors when you could use Salesforce or Marketo selectors. And Marketo selectors are just smart lists. And so one of the main reasons to use Engagio selectors is the account object. And another is that we have far more powerful expressive capability than you can get with Marketo's smart lists. And I'll show you how that happens through blocks in a moment. And so we'll talk about now what is a block and what is a relationship. So what you see on the right is accounts with any people that have, and then inside, people, and then inside of that, accounts or activities. And so a block is made up of a relationship, this connection between the account object and the person object, or the person object and the activity object. And it also has a cardinality, which is how you specify that relationship. So I could say accounts with any people that have, or I could say accounts with no people that have, or accounts with at least 3 people who have, or at most. Also, with the cardinality, I can do something like show me all of the people with a sum of engagement minutes from activities that have, and I can describe those activities in any way. So this means that I'll look at all the activities that meet my criteria and then add up all of those engagement minutes. And then if that's greater than or less than or whatever operator I choose, then it qualifies. And this is really powerful and unique to our selectors. So I'll show you a couple examples. So our first example, I want to describe the difference between dropping a field inside versus outside of a block and how it might mean something different. So we're going to create a selector to ask the question, accounts with any people that have greater than 10 minutes of engagement in the last 3 months. So we'll go over to Engagio. And there's a couple different ways we could add this block that describes the relationship. Either we can go to relationships and choose accounts with people that, or we could go over to the right sidebar under relationships and drag over accounts with people that. Or if we are just trying to ask accounts with people that and just bring in a person field, this block is automatically created because we need to ultimately output accounts because that's what this list is about. It's an account list. So we automatically wrap it. And finally, if I'm trying to create a new block, I can add a block by clicking on the right side. I want to find accounts with people. So this does the same thing in different ways. And with your feedback, we may not have all these different ways, but we want it for this idea to be as discoverable as possible. So let's say we have accounts with people to have. And then I wanted to add engagement minutes more than 10 minutes in the last 3 months. So I'm going to do this incorrectly. Rather than add it inside of the block, I'm going to add it underneath the block. So we'll say engagement minutes in the last 3 months is greater than or equal to 10. So I can use this feature at the top to check this number. So this is also incorrect for a couple reasons. One is that this should be inside, and if I do the query again, it actually says that the qualified accounts didn't change. So why is that? So that is because I'm asking for accounts with any people that have, and then I'm not describing people inside this block, I'm describing accounts. And since this is an account list, it doesn't matter whether the account descriptor is inside the block or outside the block. So what I did incorrectly is I used the wrong field. This should be the people in the last 3 months. So now if I refresh again, I can see that the number has changed. And this is our original query that we wanted. Accounts with any people that have 10 minutes of engagement in the last 3 months. But now I want to do something with the cardinality to make this a much more interesting query. I want accounts with at least 4 people that have 10 minutes of engagement or more in the last 3 months. Now I can see the number went down dramatically. And so this is one example of what we can do with cardinality to make queries much more powerful and interesting. And so we also looked at the difference between using the account field inside of a block and the person field, and how we could change the cardinality to make the query more interesting. So now we're going to go to example number 2. And I want to specify accounts that have at least 2 CXOs who have high levels of engagement. So I'll go back to my query, and I'll say at least 2. And I want these people to not only have a certain amount of engagement, but I want them to be CXOs. And just because I like having this descriptor first, I'm going to move it up here. It doesn't matter the order. And we'll say high levels of engagement is not 10, it's 20. Okay. So I have this, and now I want to see accounts that have at least 2x CXOs and accounts with people who have more than 10 minutes of engagement. And what's the difference there? So let me refresh. This is 17. If I were to take this and break it out, it auto-wraps it, and this is actually a different query, and it's not really what I wanted. This is showing me accounts with at least 2 people who are 6 CXOs, and accounts with any people that have more than 20 minutes of engagement. This is probably going to be a much larger number. So you can see how I can check a little bit to see what my expectations are by constantly checking this count widget. So what I really wanted was for this to be inside, and both of these descriptors now have to be true about the same account, which is much more restrictive. So I wanted to also include a second part of my query, which is, again, a relationship, counts with people that have. And this time I'm going to do the same thing and look at role, CXO, and I'm going to say the role is not CXO. And we'll do the same thing with engagement minutes in the last 3 months, and greater than or equal to, and we'll say 30. And I'll go up to the cardinality and I'll say at least 5 people. So I can check this results. There are not very many. That's good. So what I'm saying is that for an account to be qualified, they must have at least 2 executives engaged, or 2 CXO people engaged, and they must have 5 other people engaged at a higher threshold, more than 30 minutes. But maybe for this query, I actually just want to qualify some accounts, and so it really should be an or between the two. Because either to be qualified, you either need to have a couple engaged executives or lots of people who are engaged who aren't executives. So we'll check this query again. So 95 qualify. And finally, I want to add one additional statement. I want to find companies who are engaged with us who meet these criteria but aren't customers. So let me go ahead and add this field, the is customer or customer field. And it has the values of true or false. So I select false. And so now what I'm saying is I want to exclude any people who are customers from this search. So I want this to apply to both of these blocks. I can do one of two things. I can add that same is customer field, is existing customer, to both blocks. Or I can drag this out as its own line. And then inside of this logic, I can say I want 1 or 2 and 3. You can see how the number changed to 30. And so this query is saying, show me all of the accounts with at least 2 people who are CXOs who are engaged, or at least 5 people who are not CXOs who are more engaged, and they're not customers. So you can see how dragging these blocks inside or outside has an effect on your query. But also, hopefully, you can see how powerful it can be to be able to manipulate the cardinality and also to control these blocks. And that's all I wanted to show you today. Thank you for your time.